Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into the pretty fascinating and definitely rapidly evolving world where artificial intelligence uh, meets education. For this deep dive, we're leaning heavily on insights from, well, a really thought-provoking article by A16's it's called AI in Education. Will it replace teachers? Right, so our mission today really is to cut through some of the noise. We want to explore how AI is actually integrating into learning environments, not just as some far-off concept, but as a practical tool that's kind of reshaping how education works right now. You're going to get the key nuggets, the important stuff, so you can be well-informed and maybe uncover some surprising things along the way.
Yeah, and what's really intriguing here, I think, is that central theme. It feels truly transformative. AI's potential in education, it seems, isn't really about replacing teachers, not at this stage anyway. It's much more about profoundly amplifying them. We'll dig into why that seems to be the reality right now and, what that might mean looking forward.
Exactly. That's a really crucial distinction. And yeah, we'll dive into who's actually adopting these AI tools, what sorts of innovative learning formats are popping up, and of course the exciting and maybe sometimes challenging implications this shift has for, well, how we all learn and teach. So let's maybe start with something that might surprise you a bit. When we talk about AI in the classroom, it turns out teachers are currently the main adopters of these tools, not students.
Right, which is sort of the opposite of what you might instinctively think.
Yeah, bit of a reversal.
But it begs the question, right, why teachers first? Well, the article really highlights how invaluable AI is proving for offloading a lot of that administrative burden. Think about grading papers, crafting lesson plans, even creating assignments. These AI tools are stepping in to streamline those tasks.
Okay, so making their lives easier, basically.
Precisely, and there's a prime example mentioned, Magic School. Apparently, it's seen adoption by over 50% of U.S. teachers.
Right.
That's a huge number.
50%, wow.
Yeah, an incredibly high number, especially when you think about how teachers' budgets are often pretty limited.
So it's the educators themselves driving this, looking for efficiency, not necessarily students or parents first. That's key.
Definitely. And if we zoom out a little, look at the bigger picture, it's clear that AI's penetration into education, it's not uniform across the board. In K-12, for instance, adoption seems cautious, but it is growing steadily. We're seeing figures like around 80% of districts now have dedicated generative AI teams.
Generative AI teams, so like specific groups looking into this.
Exactly. Teams specifically tasked with exploring, piloting, integrating these AI tools, and, importantly, the policies around them.
Okay, but are we seeing that same pace everywhere?
Yeah.
Or is one area moving faster?
Well, higher education definitely seems to be leading the charge here. Universities, colleges, they're actively piloting platforms from the big AI players, OpenAI, Anthropic.
Right.
They're looking to integrate AI directly into the student workflow.
That feels like a big shift from, maybe a year or two ago with those initial reactions, the bans.
Oh, absolutely. A significant shift from those sort of knee-jerk reactions like the AI bans we saw in big districts like LA and NYC. Now the emphasis is much more on pragmatic experimentation, integration. It reflects a more mature understanding of the tech, I think.
Okay, but here's where it gets, well, really interesting to me. Gauging the actual impact. How do we define success? How do we measure it? Our sources seem to indicate that learning outcomes are still really hard to quantify.
Right, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why is it so hard to quantify? Well, it seems it's largely because AI hasn't fully, broken into core instruction yet. It's still mostly operating as support infrastructure.
Support infrastructure, meaning it helps the teachers more than directly teaching the kids.
Exactly. Most of the impact in classrooms right now is indirect. It's aiding teachers. And this creates a real challenge. Founders, investors, they're actively grappling with defining what working even means here. It's not like a software product where you see results quickly. Education's impact, it accrues over years, right? So isolating the immediate measurable learning outcomes just from AI, it's tough. That long feedback loop is a unique hurdle for proving ROI, for getting more investment.
Okay, so to give people a more concrete idea of what AI could do if it was deeply integrated, well, let's talk about Alpha School. This private school, it's essentially acting as a kind of test lab for AI in education.
Yeah, and their approach is pretty fascinating. It's a well-funded setup, and they incorporate AI tutors for up to 2 hours every day.
2 hours daily with AI tutors.
And the results they're reporting are quite impressive. Students ranking nationally in the top 1 or 2%. What this model allows is really rapid iteration. They can deploy software, see if it works, discard it quickly. There's an agility there that, public systems just can't match.
It really paints a powerful vision, doesn't it? A
Yeah.
fully AI integrated curriculum. But then, yeah, you immediately think about the leap required to make that a reality for everyone. The costs, the scalability, huge concerns for wider adoption.
Which brings us neatly to another point. Beyond the traditional classroom, how else is AI reshaping learning? Because it's happening elsewhere too. We're seeing this surge of short-form, visually rich content. Some people call it brain rot, but it's educating millions on platforms like TikTok, Instagram.
Right. And it's not just like simple facts either. Our sources mentioned some pretty intriguing examples like the deep fakes of celebrities. I think Sydney Sweeney was mentioned, explaining high school topics like vectors.
Yeah, exactly. Wild stuff.
And then tools like Notebook LM, turning textbooks into podcasts or generating quizzes on the fly.
Right. So if you put this in a wider context, it suggests we're moving away from those old fixed ideas of learning styles, you know, visual, auditory, kinesthetic.
Towards what then?
Towards what the article calls contextual learning formats. The idea is users choose based on their mood or the topic or, how urgent the information is. Education becomes much more modular, more fluid.
Almost like streaming content.
Exactly. Tailored to how you want to consume it right then and there.
So this whole evolution, it's naturally bringing up some fundamental disagreements, right? Philosophical divides among the experts. Our sources highlight two main camps, basically. They call them modernizers and system reformers.
Yeah, that's a useful framing. So Zach in the article represents the modernizer view. That's more about improving the existing system from within. Big focus on enhancing teacher support, making structural changes, but working with what we have.
Okay, incremental improvement.
Kind of. Whereas Olivia embodies the system reformer perspective that's much more revolutionary. It's about fully embracing things like AI tutors, even potentially replacing traditional classroom models altogether.
Wow, okay. So that really reflects a much broader debate we see everywhere, doesn't it? Do we tweak and enhance our existing institutions to handle new tech, or do we need a complete rebuild?
Precisely. It's that core tension. And looking ahead, the sources give us a little glimpse of what might be coming next. We could start seeing fully AI-generated teachers, maybe even AI influencers, optimized not just for grabbing attention, but for actual deep comprehension.
And imagine this. Custom learning speeds. For every single individual. If you're a fast learner, you can just blade through the material. Others could get more depth, more time, whatever they need.
Yeah.
All tailored.
So what does that personalized education actually look like? Day to day. The idea is truly modular education. Think about it. A kid could use, a talking dog avatar to learn science 1 minute.
Okay.
And then switch to a super photorealistic tutor for math the next. The goal is building these characters or interfaces that fit all sorts of learning styles and individual needs.
Sounds amazing, but also complex.
Well, yeah. And stepping back again to the sort of bigger picture, there are still some major systemic bottlenecks holding things back, hindering that full integration. Textbook publishers, for one, they're huge gatekeepers in many ways, right? They're facing a really critical decision point now. Do they embrace AI, adapt their models, or do they risk getting left behind?
Yeah, that's a big one. And beyond the publishers, there's still that feeling you mentioned earlier that AI tools often feel like add-ons. They're not woven into the core curriculum. And that really limits their potential impact, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It caps the transformation. And that points directly to this massive ongoing need for professional development.
Great.
PD.
Right. Training for the teachers.
And more than just training, teachers need support to move beyond simply using the tools, like clicking the buttons. They need help to truly embed them deeply into their lessons, to actually transform the learning experience itself. It's a mindset shift, really, not just, a software update.
So, okay, with all these moving parts, the potential, the challenges, the different approaches, what can we realistically expect to see, say, over the next year or so? Our sources seem to suggest we will see significant advancements, particularly in higher ed, and just continued experimentation in classrooms.
Yeah, I think that's right. These AI platforms, they're likely to become far more interactive, moving beyond just, generating worksheets towards real-time, maybe even voice-based engagement tools.
Or conversational AI.
Could be. But the really crucial question, the big one hanging out there is, will we see a breakout, truly AI-native education company emerge? one built from the ground up where AI isn't just a feature, it's the absolute core engine of how learning happens.
And where would that come from? A startup? An existing school system?
Yeah.
Maybe one of those publishers adapting?
Who knows? That's the question. The field feels really ripe for that kind of disruption.
So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you listening right now as a learner or maybe a parent or an educator? Well, at its core, it seems AI in education today is not really about replacing humans. It's much more about supercharging them. From those behind-the-scenes tools helping teachers with their workload to maybe those student-facing celebrity explainer videos. AI is kind of quietly seeping into almost every part of how knowledge gets delivered and hopefully retained.
Yeah, and the long-term dream, as this deep dive kind of laid out, is that hyper-personalized, maybe ultra-engaging education. Something that precisely adjusts to every single learner's pace, their style, their ambition, no matter where they are or how they prefer to learn.
So imagine that future for a second. Maybe your child's favorite video game character is also their most effective history tutor, seamlessly integrating learning right into their play. What new possibilities, maybe what new challenges too, might that unlock for education as we know it? Definitely something to mull over as you go about your day.